When we're looking at Gen Z parents coming up, their expectation is a little different. What they want to see is they want their child to get attention, to be emotionally supported, and have safe environment to be there.
What they're looking for is short information bursts because they don't have a lot of time. They're looking for quick answers. So you have to start off with everything is fine. You have to do a lot of reassuring. You have to do a lot of relationship building with parents. Most of us are doing the same thing as everyone else because we figured, well, that's what the public schools want. Well, you ought to be able to beat the public schools hands down.
Hello everyone, here I am again, Navni, founder and CEO of Illumine, continuing our conversation with Tim on 9 core pillars on building a childcare business. We'll try to go a little deeper on those pillars, maybe first pillar about building or designing a childcare that feels like a brand, not like a commodity. So welcome Tim for our conversation today.
Well, thank you. Parents are coming to us for a number of different things. Probably of all the things that they come to us for, location, convenience, and the general feeling that their children are to be happy and safe and loved. That's most important of all. There certainly are program issues. In other words, all parents have some idea that in addition to caring for their children during the hours that they're with you, they expect that something's going to happen that will be positive. To me, the very first thing is to ask, in addition to caring for children, what are we offering people? Now, part of that is just how do we treat children? That's the culture of the school. So a lot of people say, my child needs the social experience of a group of other children. That's why I'm sending you to school. Whatever it is that lead people to your school, you've got to be extremely clear about how do you treat children, how do you treat parents, and what kind of program do you want? You certainly are always looking for what I would call bragging rights, things that set your school or your center apart, but you can't mindlessly try to duplicate what everyone else is doing because that's not setting yourself apart. That's like chasing around after everyone else. Most of us are doing the same thing as everyone else. We're using workbooks and canned curriculum that's not very sophisticated because we figured, well, that's what the public schools want. My advice is, you ought to be able to beat the public schools hands down and do much more than they would. Instead, figure out what are you and your staff good at? What can you do really well? Is it art? Is it nature? Is it gardening? Is it polylingual education? What is it you're doing? So the issue first off is clarity about what are we trying to do? What are we promising to parents? Because that's an agreement, a handshake
Correct.
that you're making with your client base. For example, do you think it's appropriate to have your children working from worksheets or from workbooks or textbooks or using computers? Whatever it is you're doing, your program should be pretty well defined. And it's not only what you do, it's what you sell. It's what you explain on your website, in any printed literature, in everything you do. You've got to be communicating to your prospective parents and your current parents, what is it that we do with kids at this school? You want to think about what makes you different. It could be any number of things that you're doing. So you got to define what is it you're selling and what kind of parent do you anticipate serving? Who's going to love you for what you are?
And is it like, so when we're saying you need to decide what's gonna sell, does it tie back to where you're gonna set it up? Because it's like a chicken and egg problem. So whether they look at the location where they're gonna open up and then decide what to offer, or the other way around, first they decide what they want to offer and then look at the right place to open it.
Well, if it were me, and if I were in the process of trying to open, the first thing I would start with is why am I doing this in the first place? What's my goal?
Okay.
What do I want to do? And part of that is, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? What do I think would be a good thing to offer? Once you've got that planned out, then you got to figure out, where is there a demand for this? Am I planning to do this in a part of the world where there just aren't that many families, or there aren't families that could afford what it would cost to run my school, or there's too many competitors around? So figuring out where do you want to open it includes, where would there be a demand, and secondly, how much money do you have to invest?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of early childhood centers for a population of 150 to 200 are going to cost between $3 and $4 million in capital to set up.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to that, either in the sense of financing or cash in the bank, then you better rethink what you're doing and where you're going to open.
Here you know.
So a business is a business is a business. People just don't hand you the money and make it easy. Everyone who wants to start any business has to figure out, what do I want to do? What's it going to cost? Where am I getting that capital from? And how long will it take me to earn back my original investment? If it's going to take you 20 years to pay off the money you threw into it, it's probably not a good use of money.
Yeah.
So all of this has to do with common sense business leadership.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a strong background in business, and we certainly would argue it would be desirable if you did, if you don't have an MBA or years and years and years of experience starting businesses and building businesses, then I would certainly say you need to get help. The Small Business Administration in the United States is one great source of help. There are books on how to do it. Certainly, if you're looking for guidance on the specifics of setting up a new school in the United States, the Montessori Foundation would be one of the possible groups you might turn to. Bottom line is, you need to know what you're doing, or you're likely to lose your money.
Fair points. But first, you need to understand this is a business end of the day. I've seen childcare owners who started, most of them are mother, started more seeing taking care of kids and starting from there, and they wanted to help others. That's how they started.
Yeah.
But then they later realized it needs financial planning, capital planning, hiring, processes in place. All of that needs to be there. And that's where the business mindsets comes in. And that's very important to have it first place accepted, or find an option to make sure that you have an viable advice coming from either as someone who has a business side of it, or as someone who's partner in your business who's taking care of it.
One of the things that I would say led me to agree to work with you is that all schools, all childcare centers need tools to help them manage it, because the amount of details you have to keep track of, and the importance of having accurate historical records, and collecting tuition and forecasting your income, all the different things involved with running a school, including communicating with parents and helping your staff to be able to communicate. These are all absolutely vital tools. You cannot do this any longer using just simply paper and pencil. It's too hard. So, what I appreciate is, there's not a lot of software, in my opinion, that's really modern. There is software that works and that people use, but I think that what Illumine is doing is, you are much more cutting edge, you're much more contemporaneous with what software can do today to help people like me to run a school, to run a center.
I'll try to go a little deeper there. Why do you think the software that has exist in the market, or maybe built 5 years back or 10 years back, where do they lack at this stage?
The bottom line is that every 5 years, what software can do changes so fast, and the amount of money it costs to develop a piece of software is really expensive. And I think that people have done the best they can do, and they invest in updating their software as best they can afford. What I appreciate about your situation is, you're coming into the market as a young father who looked at your own experience with your children in childcare, and you look to ask, what do I want as a parent? And as a software programmer, you were right on the cutting edge. You knew what software could do today. Can you have the advantage of both your lived experience and your sense of what's needed, and the fact that you really weren't immersed in years and years and years of software that was developed 5, 10, 15 years ago, and having to worry about, well, I can't afford to change the software. You're starting from scratch.
Yeah, that works in our favor. We can think from reimagining it, not looking in a traditional way. I think that's where we're able to break that AI piece here. What's your outlook on the AI part of it? Like,
I was very hesitant about AI when it first began to be talked about 3 or 4 years ago. It's become, frankly, like my personal assistant, and I have great respect for it. I also understand its limits, but it is really a tool that helps you to get much more done much faster and can speed up every single process of running a business if you know what you're doing. So again, if you're not a programmer, and I'm not a programmer, I'm not a high tech guy. I need to find software that's designed to use the latest AI, and it's structured to make it easy for people like me who are not high tech folks to work smart.
correct. I think that what you said there is, I think that's something that people should look at it. You said AI has become like your assistant now, which takes care of it or makes easy for you to get your job done. And that's the outlook I think was for us also. Because a lot of time when we were building it, we were realizing it. We with the traditional approach, you'll build a bookkeeping software, we'll record keeping software, but how can we make actually life easier? How can we go and further take your thought process, take your things that you wanted to get it done and get it done instead of you investing time, a lot of time to get it done. And that's where it's playing crucial roles now.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So coming back to the first pillar that we were talking about in terms of building the right program, and I think now people will know what are the key areas to look for it. If let's say a right program is developed, how as a owner I know that I have built something as a differentiated program and I build something well, or is it not going well? How can they take a step back and also look at it, evaluate it, what they have decided is working really well?
Yeah. I think first off, many people, I don't care whether you're in early childhood or elementary or even high school and middle school, many people can't look objectively at their own stuff. They're just so used to it. They assume that's the way it needs to be and that's as good as it gets. You need to have a program that you really believe in. And ideally, you shouldn't simply, with some self and convince or something, or snap at something that sounds like a good idea. But I can tell you, whatever your program is, whether it's Montessori or Reggio Emilia or whatever, it's not that easy to put it into practice. So you have to have a way of knowing what is it that we're trying to do and how am I going to help my staff to really be able to do this well? And how will I evaluate whether or not they're doing it well? And quite often, again, we just can't be the ones to judge our own program by ourselves. We may need an outside set of eyes to look at it and say, okay. I mean, surveys of parents is good, although most parents don't want to tell you
As
anything.
I will also say that parent survey will be the first thing that comes in mind, but maybe not the very accurate picture that you're looking for.
Well, it depends. The average parent isn't that sophisticated. So if you knock their socks off, if you're offering something spectacular, then you'll know it because these parents are going to be raving and are going to be online and are going to be sending you, but you're going to have parents lined up out the door. But one way or the other, your parents are often not going to tell you if they're not that impressed, unless they're very, very upset with you, because they don't want you to be upset with them. So, how can you be sure that it's working? Well, the question is, what's working? The first issue is what's happening in the classrooms consistent with what you had in mind. And the best way to do that is to get in those classrooms and observe what your teachers are doing and pay attention and do it often instead of just once a month, whether they need it or not. So that's hard. For many of us, it is difficult to see our own center objectively because we are so busy. There's so many things to do, so many phone calls, so many people to meet with, so many paperwork things to fill out. You may feel like you don't have time, but it definitely somebody ought to be checking it out. My general advice is be very clear about what you're trying to do and what you're telling parents and what don't promise them things you can't deliver. Don't claim to be a Montessori school when you really don't know what you're talking about. If you're not Montessori trained, your teachers are not Montessori trained. If you don't have fully equipped Montessori environments, you're asking for trouble if you start claiming you're Montessori. On the other hand, if you are influenced or inspired by Montessori and you want to incorporate some elements of it, just be careful to say, our program is inspired by many different things, including the work of Maria Montessori. Clarity in the way you communicate, the way you think about things is very, very important because that builds trust.
And there is an interesting thing comes there, like, so one is how you do it, communicate it, but there are audience change in terms of now when we're looking at Gen Z parents coming up. I keep hearing when I talk to a lot of childcare center saying that their expectation is a little different. What they want to see is they want their child to get attention, to be emotionally supported and have safe environment to be there. And how does it reflect the program offering, and like how they answer confidently on how the program is taking care of those things.
Well, I mean, I think again, there's several different issues. Parents have different goals. Some parents are very academic. Why isn't my 2-year-old reading? Why isn't my 2-year-old already potty trained? What do you mean my child bit someone else or got bitten? People go through this kind of stuff. So you've got to ask what kind of parents are you dealing with and who are they? If are they simpatico with your culture, with your concept of what you're trying to accomplish? But the issue of how do you communicate with parents, man, is that important because a parent drops their child off, they go sit in the car, and then they typically sob because my child has just been left with strangers. And until they come to believe that you and your staff are part of family, they usually are very, very nervous about what have I just done to my kid? And should I be ashamed of myself as a parent for doing this? Parents believe that they should be fed information throughout the day. They're looking for as much information as you can give them. Yeah, they could be very, very busy. And frankly, they may not give a hoot. They may feel like, what are you bothering me with? I pay you to watch my kid. I got no time for this. I'm in meetings.
Get that parent too, yeah.
There are those parents too. So parents are not the same. They're all different. I think that the general rule of thumb is you want to err on the side of giving them more than what they expect. And you want to assume that different parents have different desires. What they're looking for is short information bursts because they don't have a lot of time. They're looking for quick answers. If you were to call them, they assume that their kid is now in the hospital and their heart goes into their mouth. They're upset. So you have to start off with everything is fine. I'm just calling because I got a quick question. It's really okay now. So you have to do a lot of reassuring. You have to do a lot of relationship building with parents. And you want to have tools that give parents just enough information that they feel like I got a pretty good idea of what's happening at that place during the course of the day. And some parents will want more than you give, but in general, you're not going to give them enough. And so any software that makes it easy for your staff who are very, very busy scrambling after kids, making sure they're all okay,
Yeah.
getting them fed, doing all the different things, You want to have a way that they can communicate with parents, not just when something bad happens, like a kid gets scratched or hurt. You want to communicate throughout the day good things that are happening.
Yeah.
So that's something I really appreciate about what your team at Illumine are trying to do. So bottom line is, I don't care what software somebody's using. You want to have the best tools you can get as parents to communicate with parents in a way that they will read it, they will appreciate it, they'll understand it. They'll feel like that school keeps me in the know, up to date.
Got it. Makes sense. And okay, I think that's a very detailed understanding of what to expect from a parent side. You'll get a variation of parents. If try to summarize a bit, you'll get different types of parents. You'll get some feedbacks from the parents, but at the end, you have to proactively seek for that feedback to look at it, how effective the program is. If people are lining up at your door, you know it's working really well. But even if it's not lining up, it's not about going and checking what others are doing. It's going back to your teachers, talking to them what's happening inside, and then improving on it.
You can either hire someone to do this for you who knows what they're doing and don't just give your cousin a job. Big mistake. You need to hire people that actually know what they're doing.
Don't go to family directly just to get the job done.
I
It's
can't
not a store.
I can't tell you how many centers get into trouble because they make assumptions that someone says, "Oh yeah, I know how to do that." Or they have an aunt, an uncle, a sister who says, "I've worked with kids for you. I could do it all." You've got to be you've got to be clear about what do you have in mind and can these people who are working with you really do it? Now look, we can't always hire the perfect people, which is why it's really important to set your expectations that are realistic so that you're not promising more than you actually can do.
Okay.
The other thing is you need to invest in your people because they don't necessarily come to the job as experts. And even if they did, they tend to get bored and tired and burned out. And people need to be re inspired and reminded. They need to be refreshed. So, investing in your people, investing in professional development and training, in renewal is really important. And this is both emotional renewal, psychological, spiritual, and it's intellectual, reminding them, how positive discipline works, or how do you engineer a beautiful environment, or why you need to be so incredibly careful that you never leave a child out on the playground after recess. Whatever it is, your staff need to know here's how we do things at our center.
That brings to one point, as I said, like they work so hard during the day and then go back home. I've also seen a lot of them, they have their own kids. And couple of centers who do really well, they support those families also to bring their kids to the center while they're working. Do you think that's also a very good idea to include in the program to structure it to support the staff?
I do. If one of the reasons why a lot of people work in schools and childcare centers is because they have young children. They need to earn a living. And they often, if they work for you, either you're going to give it to them for free or you're going to give them a significant discount. And that is for many people how we get our best staff. Now, they may or may not be professional teachers and maybe they could be, but they're often people that are highly motivated. Having your child close by can be a real blessing because then you know if their child's okay, you're not sitting there worried. Now, obviously, it can also be problems. If your child is a biter and he's in another classroom and the other teachers are thinking your child's a little hellion,
Yeah.
you can feel very embarrassed. But in general, this is something many of us do. And the biggest problem is if you've got a staff of 25, you got 15 people who are sending their children to your school and maybe you got 100 kids, that's a significant piece of your income that they're giving away or giving a big discount on. So you got to figure this out. It's all about balance.
Do you have any stories, Tim, that you've seen any of the brands that you've worked with, any childcare or a preschool, who has transformed their brand or something similar that is inspiration for others through their program offering? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm working with school right now that's in a very affluent community. Parents really like it. But the owner realized that the brand has gotten pretty shoddy because they have a lot of staff turnover. The staff that they get isn't really very sophisticated or well trained. They don't speak English as their native language. And the place was lit out, sort of run amok. And it's not that the customers were unhappy, but the owner felt that in the long run, they needed to make a transformation. You can't get your staff to change by yelling at them. You have to lovingly inspire them and show them how to do it differently. And this is a school that over the last year, we've been making a lot of change with them to create a much happier parent body and a much happier teacher community
So
and much calmer kids.
that's amazing. So basically, you're saying working with teachers help them, like giving them the trust, support that they needed it. And that's what it builds the brand in the end and solve also the issue of retention.
Oh, absolutely. It's much easier to keep a child that's currently enrolled in your school in most cases than it is to go out and recruit a new one.
Uh,
So putting energy into keeping your current parents happy, if at all possible, is desirable. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean you will make every parent happy. There are going to be parents that, frankly, just don't give a hoot. They don't care that much about you. They're there and they apply to some other school and they get in and they simply send you a letter that says, I just want to let you know that I won't be back tomorrow because we've gotten into this other place. And they have no idea that they signed a contract with you for the whole year. Bottom line is you want to try to find parents who really are care about where their children are going to school. They care about their kids, and yet they're not so neurotic that they're going to make you and your staff crazy. You're trying to find parents who can pay the bills if you charge tuition, people who will work with you in partnership instead of threatening to sue you or blaming you for everything. That's the ideal. It's hard enough to do this work. Your staff goes home at the end of the day exhausted, and the odds are pretty good that it's late at night and you're still there working hours after they've gone home. You want to make it as easy on your staff as you can. You definitely want any tool that helps you to get your job done with less time and aggravation. You can.
Got it. I think this has been really helpful. I think it discover the aspects that you can look at it when you're trying to build a brand. You care for your staff, you care about their families and the families that they endure. Yep. That's the learning of today's session. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Thanks, Tim, for this.
My pleasure.
We'll connect again.